Happy New Year. Welcome back to Her Workplace Unfiltered. I can't believe it's 2026. I'm really excited to dive in with you all to just share more about what I'm focused on for 2026, share more lessons and learnings from 2025, and also talk about the future of work for women and what you can expect as a woman who is leading, advancing, and growing in your career if you're a woman listening to this. So, I want to talk about just the start of the new year. The start of every year usually comes with a lot of big goals and fresh energy. And there's just so much pressure to have everything figured out. But for me, that's not how 2026 is starting. I'll be honest, last year was really difficult for me. It really stretched me as a founder, a leader. Being a new mom was really challenging. And there were just things that I didn't fully anticipate. There were moments of growth. There were moments that really forced me to reassess and slow down and overall just get really honest about how I wanted to move forward in building her workplace and working on some other ventures that I have as well, and being a new mom and having a growing family. So at the same time, I've been listening a lot this past year to women around me. So, our members at her workplace, women that we collaborate with, women that we've had on the podcast who are in leadership roles, as well as those that are earlier in their careers. And the same theme keeps coming up of work just feels heavier for women. So instead of starting this year with resolutions or a long list of goals, I personally wanted to start with intention. And in this episode, I'm going to share more about how I'm approaching 2026 differently compared to years in the past, what I'm prioritizing, the things that I'm letting go of, and how I'm thinking more about building something that actually lasts, not just inside of her workplace, but across every role that I hold, all of the ventures that I'm working on, and just overall this season of life that I'm personally and professionally navigating. So I just want to say before we get started that if you're coming into this year in a reflective place, or maybe you're not as loud or energized as those around you, I'm really glad you're here because I will share more with you about how, again, it's okay not to go into the new year with all of these really loud goals and initiatives. And that's just personally the place that I'm in. Every season doesn't have to be this like big excitement. Some years for me personally start more quietly. Maybe they start with exhaustion from the previous year. Maybe they start with reflection instead of that preparedness for momentum. So if that's how this year, 2026, feels for you, I want you to know that you're not behind. There's again a lot of pressure in January to really hit the ground running, to have clarity, to have momentum, and to have that clear plan forward. But sometimes when we force ourselves into that speediness before we're ready, we can often disconnect from the things that we actually really need. So that's where I am. For me, this year isn't necessarily about speed. It's more about sustainability. It's more about building in a way that I can maintain over the long term, not just for a few months. So I've personally been focusing a lot on preparing myself for that next phase of growth, not only with her workplace, but with all of the other things that I've been working on. And just to give more clarity, I do have two other ventures, a commercial real estate firm where I do some consulting on the side because I spent my entire career in real estate and it was just something that I didn't want to let go of. And then I have a new venture that I'm going to be launching in the next few months that's focused on connecting female founders to the right investors. It will be a tech platform and a community. It's called Fund Her Network. So I have a lot on my plate right now. And again, I am trying to stay more focused on how can I continue to keep things going and keep things growing at the same time while ensuring that it's sustainable growth. And it puts me in a position of success. And I'm not overwhelmed and trying to hit these certain milestones that may be unrealistic. So, before I talk kind of more about that personal and professional journey that I'm going through, I want to talk more about women in the workplace in general. I've spent the past 3 years building Her Workplace, which is a career network and platform that helps women who are growing, leading, and advancing in their careers and gives them the resources, the support, and the opportunities to reach those milestones and to, again, accelerate their career growth. Women are building careers inside of systems that are shifting. And in many cases, most are not designed to fully support women still. So you may have seen that Lean In and McKinsey did their annual Women in the Workplace report. And, we at Her Workplace did kind of an overview, and I personally did one as well on social media about what the findings were and what our takeaways and what our perspectives are. And I was, again, year over year, just disappointed by the data that comes out because the needle is just not moving, and it hasn't been. Women are continuing to drop out of the workforce. There's companies that are still not supporting women. I think it's about 50% of organizations actually do support women. And that's through many various ways of having processes and systems and resources inside of organizations that are actively supporting and promoting and advancing women. But the other half, 50% of companies still aren't. Women aren't reaching those promotional milestones. The pay gap continues to widen. Women aren't advancing as quickly as they should be. Again, we're not seeing as many women in C-suite positions. So every year, I personally am just disappointed by the data because it shows me that there's a huge problem here. And it doesn't seem like there are many organizations and leaders who are investing their efforts into fixing it. Hundreds of thousands of women have dropped out of the workforce just this past year. And, that's just another statistic that adds to this fire of women are not advancing. Women are not even in the workforce. They're just, again, not reaching those milestones. Another piece to this is the job market continues to be tighter and tighter. And in 2025, it was the most challenging, I think, job market that we've seen in the past several years. Roles are more competitive, hiring processes are longer, expectations continue to be higher. And the war on talent is just so important. If you're a woman who is extremely talented, organizations are really trying to hold on to you. And the thing is, though, there is that other piece of it that not every organization supports women. So I think now is such a great time for women to kind of be louder in their organizations, ask for support, ask for the resources, ask for those promotions, because organizations are trying to hang on to their top talent. And again, you're combining that with a really tight job market, especially with kind of AI being more and more integrated into roles. There's so much fear about the future of AI. Anyone can now go and perfect the perfect resume by using AI. So it's going to be even more important, I think, for women to find the mentors, get the sponsors, build their networks, get access to the resources, the skill building that they need to continue to grow, lead, and advance in their organizations. And it's an even more important time to go to your leaders, go to your managers, and get them to be that supporter, get them to sponsor you for those initiatives that you are doing to build visibility, increase your confidence, and overall accelerate your career growth. So there's no better time for women to lean into this situation that we're in now of organizations looking to retain their top talent. Alongside all of this, women are continuing to still kind of carry this disproportionate amount of invisible labor. So the emotional work, culture building, responsibility that often goes unrecognized when it comes to promotions and advancements. And one of the most kind of concerning patterns that I've been seeing isn't this lack of ambition. It's more about how many women are internalizing systemic challenges as personal failures. Kind of like I said before, it's these systems that are not fully supportive of women. The system is broken. And when you have broken systems, there aren't the resources and opportunities and support that women need and deserve. So I've heard a lot of women kind of questioning their readiness, downplaying their experience, or telling themselves that they should just be grateful to have a seat at the table, even when that seat comes with very little support. So I just want to remind all of those that are listening to this that it is the system that is not fully supportive of women. And until those systems do continue to change and become more supportive of women, it's still very much up to us to invest in our career growth. No one's going to build and grow your career for you. You have to go out and find the mentors, the sponsors, the skill building resources, build your network so that you can have more autonomy over your career growth and take ownership of your career. The reality is that effort alone isn't enough anymore. Building a career today requires structure, mentorship, sponsorship, support, resources. And without those things, even the most capable women burn out or stall. So that's how women need to continue to build their careers in the environment that we're in today. So again, I would encourage you to seek the resources, find the mentors, get the support, elevate your skills, be that thought leader, find ways to build your confidence more, elevate your speaking, your engagements, your visibility, because no one's going to do this for you. And we at Her Workplace have incredible resources to get started and to get the support and access to the people that you need to grow. So that's a place where you can get those resources. And that's why I built Her Workplace in the first place. So I want to kind of shift to talk more about 2025 for me and how it changed the way that I think about growth. So last year was survival mode for me, both personally and professionally. I became a new mom. So I was juggling not having maternity leave, being a first time startup founder in year two, and trying to learn how to be a mom. So there were moments for me where pushing through felt like the only option. slowing down was risky for me because I was so afraid of things not continuing to move forward for me professionally. And rest was something that I felt like I had to earn later. Like, okay, let me just get through this season, this year, and then I can play catch up later on. But what I learned is that that constant pushing doesn't create better outcomes. It actually creates burnout, it creates reactive decision making, and growth is overall just not sustainable from that place. I kept saying to myself, okay, I'll slow down after the next milestone, after the next win, or after I push through this project or initiative. And the truth was that that later never really came. And it was on me to kind of intentionally build those resting periods throughout my schedule. And so that experience of navigating all of those challenges from last year, it kind of forced me to redefine growth and not have it be defined as something about it being fast moving or how something looked or that it needed to be really loud, but more about how supportive the structure for me was. Growth without structure and support eventually breaks you down. So, when I say I'm building with intention this year, I don't mean doing less. I mean being deliberate about what actually deserves my time and energy, especially in this culture that we live in that rewards that constant visibility and output and being loud about the things that you're building. Intention for me really looks like focus. So, for example, choosing fewer priorities, committing to them fully instead of trying to do everything at once. It looks like clarity as well. So being honest about what is it that truly moves the needle forward? What are the things that I can delegate? What are the things that maybe I can put off for another season or time? And what is simply noise or pressure from the outside? So finding that difference between, okay, here are the things that are the priority. Here are the things that maybe something I can push off to another time or something that is just not a priority. And maybe I'm just getting that external pressure that I should do something. It also looks like boundaries for me. So protecting my time, my energy, my attention. This is really important if you are becoming a leader or you're leading a team. It's important for you to stay grounded in yourself and to ensure that your energy is being placed in the right areas. And again, having that time to reset your energy. And lastly, it really looks for me like finding alignment, saying no to things that from the outside may look really good, but they don't actually feel right. And I'm very much someone that leads with my gut. And I didn't really discover my gut until I became an entrepreneur. So I've always been very much okay, if this feels off or if something feels weary or if I have a doubt about anything, to not proceed. And whenever I know that something feels really good, I am confident in moving forward and making those decisions. So continuing to kind of lean into that and following my gut more, being slower about decisions that I make, particularly with building my team and hiring people, finding the right people, not just keeping things moving when they're not working out or hiring people that may not be the right fit. So that's kind of an example of the things that I'm leaning more into this year. I'm no longer in this place of building to prove something. I'm really focused on building to sustain something. So I'm too still learning a lot about how to kind of hold these multiple identities of being a founder, being a leader, being a mother, being a woman, a person without kind of losing myself in any of those identities and For a long time, I felt a lot of pressure to excel in every role at the same time. But that expectation just isn't realistic. And it's one that I see many women kind of carry. I think that different seasons require different levels of capacity. So, honoring that it doesn't mean that you're falling behind in certain areas. It means that you're paying attention and prioritizing the things that are really important during that time. And I'm learning that I can be ambitious without being depleted. I can care deeply about my work and also care deeply about my daughter and my personal life. And throughout my entire career, I kind of felt like I had to be one or the other. But I'm learning how to integrate all of these different areas. And again, not beating myself up for not prioritizing the other areas. So I'll give you an example. Like if I have a really big meeting in the morning and I'm not able to play with my daughter for an hour, but I have to get something done for work, I have to attend this meeting. I am not beating myself up over that. There will be times where I can prioritize my daughter and kind of put my work to the side. And that's okay. I can be all of these different people, but I can't give all of the effort to every single thing at once. So trying to just be more graceful with myself about that and understanding that I can hold these multiple identities and give more effort to one thing over another. And that's okay. So, also, kind of as I move into the new year, I'm being more intentional about what I'm carrying forward. I'm carrying forward lessons from failure and friction because it was those moments that really taught me more than the wins ever did. I'm such a huge fan and proponent of it's okay to fail because you learn. And so I'm carrying forward the lessons that I've learned over the past year, more specifically, into the new year so I can continue to build and learn and lean into the things that I want to continue to evolve. I'm also carrying forward relationships that have sustained me, especially the people who showed up consistently kind of throughout this journey of being an entrepreneur, not just those that were there when things were going really well and, maybe they dropped off when we went through our challenges. I think it's really important to surround yourself with those that cheer you on through the good and the bad times, because it's those people that are going to continue to be there for you. They'll propel you forward and they will give you that positive energy to get to that next level. So at the same time, there are things that I'm leaving behind from last year. A few things, overcommitting. I do have a lot of different things going on. I think I felt like I could only focus on one area. And similar to how I've kind of organized these multiple identities of myself, I'm thinking the same about the ventures that I have. So, again, it's okay to put focus here on this company one day and then the next day focus elsewhere on another company. Finding more kind of, I hate the word balance, but just finding more clarity there of, okay, I can do all of these things and build this portfolio career, but I shouldn't over commit to things that again drain my energy or don't help me move the ball forward. I'm also leaving behind like feeling guilty about resting, starting to sleep in more, which I didn't do at all last year. I was a crazy person and was waking up at like 3, 4 a.m. to start work. So really prioritizing resting, taking time for myself, doing things in the evening specifically to shed off the day and, rest and reflect and restore myself. A few things I'm letting go of is Making decisions out of urgency or fear. I definitely last year felt like I was in this like scarcity mindset. And I think it really held me back from opportunities such as partnerships and different areas that I could really leverage for the growth of myself professionally, the building of my own brand, plus all of the other things that I'm doing, her workplace, what I'm building. I really saw things as scarce and didn't see bigger picture. So, that led to making decisions out of fear. And, I'm really focused on making more decisions out of opportunity. And again, looking at this bigger picture of, there are all of these opportunities that I can leverage, and I do have the support and the resources to get there. And then lastly, measuring success by comparison instead of alignment. As much as I am pretty good about not comparing myself, it still is sometimes there where like I'll see something on social media that someone else has done, or, I'll see a competitor of ours like doing something that makes me nervous. The thing is, comparison truly is the thief of joy. And when you're measuring yourself against others, you're not focused on yourself. And so I'm really leaning more into that of kind of staying in my lane, again, leaning into the supporters, the mentors, the people that do support me and do support her workplace and all of the other things that I'm doing, and just continuing to get that positive feedback from them. That's what really fuels me is when I hear from a mentor of like, wow, it's incredible what you're doing and what you've built, just reminds me that, oh, okay, so someone else sees that this is real and this is impactful and that I've done something powerful. Yeah, those are kind of the things that I'm leaving behind this year. And all of those patterns just aren't part of how I want to build anymore. And again, how I'm going into 2026. So, with that, I want to kind of talk about what success looks like for me this year. It's different. It looks like consistency instead of scarcity and chaos. It looks like having more depth instead of trying to constantly be visible. There's so much pressure now, especially with social media, of like posting and getting out there and building your brand. But, the social media game is really starting to shift, which I'm excited about. And it's shifting in the way that, consumers are really looking for more depth. They're looking for those thought leaders. They're looking to hear from people that have the credentials and have the experience, and they want more learnings and they want more knowledge sharing. And I think that's really an area that I'm continuing to lean more into of how can I take all of my experience of business school and 15 years in corporate and being an advancing leader and building a startup, having a portfolio career, how can I kind of take all of those learnings and share it with the world? So I'm really excited about that and getting deeper about what those learnings have been, how I got there, what I'm focused on, and where I'm going. Success for me this year also looks like resilience instead of exhaustion. And again, kind of what I said before, I'm really focused on taking care of myself, taking walks in the middle of the day, doing things that really make me feel good, having downtime at night to prepare myself for the next day, and focusing on how I bounce back instead of constantly being tired, which is how I felt last year. I just felt run down and I didn't have or make that time for myself to restore. I'm no longer kind of chasing loud wins. I'm really focusing on those meaningful ones. And a lot of that comes from my mentors, my supporters, my customers. What are they telling me about their experience and the impact that I'm making, and really leaning more into those kind of meaningful wins along the way instead of, oh, we have to reach this goal or I need to be in this press feature. Those loud wins are great, but it really is those little milestones that keep you moving. And, again, success doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. It can be quieter, and that's okay. So, if you are listening to this and you're kind of starting this year without a clear roadmap, I want you to know that that's okay. You don't need to have everything figured out on day one. It's okay to enter a new year with a lot of questions for yourself instead of answers, instead of clarity. Intention can come before clarity, and you're allowed to move slowly and still build something really powerful. Where you are right now isn't a failure, it's just part of the process. So I just want to reiterate that to you because that's kind of the place that I'm in. I do feel like I have clarity, but I'm still building what the roadmap looks like for this year and for myself. So again, as I kind of step into this year, my intention is really simple, to build things that really last, not just in my work, but in the way I lead, in my relationships, in my life, being a new mom. So I hope this episode kind of gives you that permission to reflect on how you want to build this year without that pressure or comparison. And, if this resonated, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it. And, make sure to subscribe to Her Workplace Unfiltered so you don't miss what's coming next. We have some incredible guests coming up for 2026, amazing women who are advancing, who are leading big organizations. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to get that real advice and truth from those who have been there. So again, this year I'm really choosing to build what lasts. And I hope you give yourself permission to do the same.